Hi, I'm Scott at ediblemusic.com. I want to correct something that you might have heard and that you might even have repeated yourself. The phrase goes, a good mix starts with a good arrangement. Now, this isn't entirely wrong, but it's incorrect in a way that's not helpful to you. Usually what it refers to is organizing all the parts of the song, the program elements, drums, bass, guitars, keys, all the vocals, and making sure that they're positioned among the frequency spectrum in ways that complement each other, so that by the time that you start mixing, then you can avoid the frustration of having all these parts crowding and overlapping each other and not being able to achieve separation between the program elements very easily. That has to do with orchestration. And orchestration is all about the different chord shapes that you might decide on, the various voicings and harmonies that you might choose between different instruments and different elements within the song. That's all very important, and it is important to have them positioned in a complementary way, frequency-wise, because it can feel fairly straightforward that you can have the bass and the kick drum on the low end, but as you move up in the frequency spectrum, especially into the mid-range, that's where a lot of instruments and vocals live within the frequency spectrum. And so it is important to make sure that they have some distinguishing characteristics that contrast each other so that you don't end up with that frustrating jumble of sounds by the time that you're mixing. As you're writing, employ orchestration techniques to fill out the frequency spectrum, but not in a way where one thing is stepping on another. So that might be something like moving one instrument into a different octave so that it doesn't clash with something that needs to be more pronounced in a particular frequency range. Sometimes it can mean just changing the voicing or the shape of a chord so that it's hitting on different keys or strings that then won't disrupt or obfuscate the part that it's interacting with and causing some frustration there. Those are very important features of a song. The orchestration has to do with the where of a part, as in, does it occur in the lower part of the frequency spectrum or the higher part of the frequency spectrum? And the how, which refers to its timbre or its tone, its color, and how that color either matches or contrasts with a different part of the program. When we're talking about arrangement, we're talking about the when of a song, as in, when should the chorus happen? When should this certain section of the song happen? When should this instrument come into the song? When should it come out of the song? Equally as important question to ask. Allowing yourself to think of the when and the where and the how of a song allows you to approach it with some greater flexibility about positioning all the parts of a song in relation to each other. One of the things that can make mixing feel more difficult is to be inflexible about the arrangement and the orchestration and to think that everything that you've put into it so far is necessary and needs to be there as it is with no changes at all. Because then you are kind of producing the problem for yourself. If you have a crowded song and everything is happening the whole way through, and there's no sense of narrative to the song, there's no sense of dynamic contrast and tension and release, then the mix will, of course, become more difficult simply because the mix is supposed to emphasize those elements, but if they're not there in the orchestration and in the arrangement, then yes, the mix will feel more frustrating for sure. When you're arranging, consider which program elements will need to be the anchor parts of the song. These can be inflexible because they'll shape the skeleton of the song. If you have vocals and drums or a really important lead instrument, then those are going to form the anchor parts, and you can arrange and orchestrate the rest of the song around them. But allowing for some flexibility then aids you in the process of fitting things around those skeletal anchor parts. And choosing the parts that will fit around them then allows you to have some flexibility and some experimentation with the way that the song produces its narrative and produces its tension and release by having instruments come in and out of the mix. When you're thinking about whether a good mix starts with a good arrangement, try muting and unmuting or raising and lowering the volume faders at certain parts of a song so that the anchor parts, the skeletal parts, can have a greater emphasis. Or if there is sort of a supplementary part that deserves a bit of a brief spotlight, then push that one up using the volume fader or mute out other parts so that it can have that greater emphasis. These are a few arrangement strategies that you can employ. Orchestration and arrangement are associated parts of making a song, but they function quite differently when you're mixing a song. The orchestration is more so about frequency balance, and the arrangement is about helping the dynamism of the song to move forward and give some excitement to the listener. So now you know there's a distinction, a very important one, between arrangement and orchestration. And yes, both of them are important, but you can approach them creatively in some different ways. I want you to try that out.